Welcome to Vacation Station, hosted by Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazines.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Big Blend Radio's Vacation Station Travel Show with Nancy and Lisa. You know, every fourth Tuesday, it is time to chat with Debbie Stone. Debbie Stone is a travel writer. She's been all over the world. Can't keep up with how many places. She's been all across the country, around and around. She's going back to Europe this year, but before she goes off to Europe, we're catching up with her on some of her recent adventures. And the latest one is, well, actually, no, there's just so many. Seriously, if you go to nationalparktraveling.com or you go to blendradioandtv.com, just type in Debbie Stone, and you can see a playlist of her recent interviews and links to her articles, because she gets around. And we do call her Fire Monkey. She got that name for when she was in Bhutan. Was it Bhutan, Debbie?
Yes.
Bhutan. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bhutan. But anyway, welcome back, Fire Monkey. How are you?
Well, thank you. Quite the nice introduction. How are you, ladies?
We're doing good. And, you know, we've been catching up on Debbie, over the last few days with all your articles and all these places that you've been. And, every fourth Tuesday you're on the show, but there's just so much, more that you've covered also just in story form. And it's just cool that you got to Channel Islands National Park, which is what we're talking about today. Nancy and I never got the opportunity to go. We did go to Ventura many years ago and went out. Island Packers, very familiar with them, and an amazing company that take people out. And we were doing a great whale watching tour. I don't know if it's gray whales or blue whales, but we got rained out.
Yeah.
So you got to do the experience we didn't. And I think it's so cool that you did it, because there are certain national parks that you can't just drive in and, go in for the day. This is a little bit more planning, but you did it and it looks pretty epic. So yeah, you had a good time, huh?
It's an extremely, I think, a good word for it, like you said, is very epic and very dramatic national park. And like you mentioned, you have to take a boat to this one. This is the only way that you can reach it. And it's magnificent. It's one of those places where you're like, oh my gosh, this is like an incredible, wonderland. Very, very enchanting.
Yeah, and somehow you don't think it's part of the United States. You know
right.
what I mean?
You just feel really out there. I mean, they call it the Galapagos of the North, and it's because of the wildlife, and it's just kind of one of the wildest places that you can visit. And so a lot of the wildlife that's there is only there and has been only there, and you can only find it there. So it's similar to the Galapagos in that respect.
Yeah,
I think it's really neat, going on these islands, and then the human history is really cool, and it does tie into Cabrillo National Monument, which was one of our very first parks on Nancy and I's travels on our Love Your Parks tour, Cabrillo National Monument in San Diego. But I think what's really cool is this is part of Central California, and this is kind of where you're out of LA. You're just above Santa Barbara and Ventura, Oxnard area. So you still have palm trees, but this is where California starts to really change on the coast. And when you go inland, you've got Sequoia and Kings Canyon,
right?
Pinnacles National. You've done those parks. Pinnacles. You did Pinnacles.
Yeah.
Was it the same trip even? Like, it's kind of close.
No, Pinnacles was just, we did that in relation to Channel Islands, right?
Yeah. So it's pretty close and Death Valley and Joshua Tree. Like, you could do this route with all of them. I know a lot of people that travel. I belong to all these, national park Facebook groups, and they're always wanting to know, like, oh, if I'm going to Channel Islands, what else can I do? And I'm like, dude, you got to go to Pinnacles. And going to Channel Islands to me is pretty epic, because you do you need to secure lodging pretty much, right? Wouldn't you say, in Ventura or Oxnard or somewhere, and then plan to get out?
Right. You can secure it, we had it like the night before and the night after we went, and then, so 2 nights if you want, or the second, if you get back usually, kind of later, like 5 o'clock. It depends on which boat it is, but, unless you're going to drive somewhere that evening, you can actually just stay in Ventura, and, there's plenty, Ventura Harbor, which is the area, there's a lot of restaurants, and, you walk, and, so there is stuff in Ventura that you can, take advantage of being there, but it is great proximity to, like you said, a lot of different national parks. And that's the trip that we also went up to Salinas and did this whole Steinbeck Center,
Yeah.
So, there is so much there that you can do, and, you can go up to San Luis Obispo, and the whole, there's a lot in that central area.
Mm-hmm.
I love
So
it.
much.
And there's so much history in what, I know the Chumash Native American culture was really big on the coastal front in Ventura.
Right.
And then, of course, you've got the missions. It's part of the Wampatista de Anza National Historic Trail that goes from south of Tucson, or actually through Mexico, all the way up to the Presidio, which is in San Francisco, and started, that's what Wampatista did. So it's part of this National Historic Trail. But I love how you brought in all the cultures in through these different times. And I have to say this, I did not know this, and I got super excited that a 13,000-year-old human leg bone was found on an island. Like, dude, seriously.
I knew I left it somewhere.
Yeah.
I was like, thank you for finding it.
I know it was. When I heard that, I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
I know, that is so weird.
You can't believe, can't believe that something like that is found there, and
But
it
then
has
if
a
you're
distinction, the earliest known human presence,
But you're stuck on an island. It's not like you can get off. I mean, what's that song? And I lost my leg. Did you know that song?
That's I'm shipping off to Boston.
And I lost my leg.
Yeah, but I mean, isn't this the oldest in North America? The oldest remains?
Supposedly, it is the earliest known human presence that's been documented. Now, of course, we don't know. There could be others, but this has been documented in North America. So it really, that's a pretty amazing distinction. So it was surprising to me when I found that, and those are the kinds of things that I learned about when I went to there's a visitor center for the national park that's actually in Ventura at the harbor, right down the place, right where you get the boat, the Island Pictures boat. So you can go to that, go in there and see the visitor center, see this great video, and then walk around the exhibits. But it's a nice preparatory, introduction to what you're going to go see. And then once you're on the park, there is also on the island, there's also a small visitor center as well, and that talks more about what's there on that island and the that particular history there with that historic ranch. But so I really recommend for people to just take a look at that visitor center before they hop on the boat.
Yeah, you never know. You might find the other leg.
Oh, nice,
Well,
Nancy.
No, but did you see? Is there an exhibit with the leg? The leg?
No,
bone?
there is not. The leg is not exhibited. I don't know where it is. Maybe it is. I'm not sure where it is, but I know that I didn't see it. Put it this way.
Yeah, I just wondered if it's shorter than our legs now.
Yeah,
now there's that whole.
Well, they do say that all the humans that came, way back, were shorter.
Yeah,
and
so I just.
So it's bound, like you said, it's bound to be shorter.
But I think it's really cool because these islands are so preserved and protected. It's very similar to in San Diego. We've got those islands out there too, and
That's right.
and they go out to Mexico, but these islands being protected like that, I think are crucial. But when you think about them finding this, I'm sorry, but we are stuck on the leg for a little bit here. But the human history, and then the nature and wildlife being so biodiverse and endemic, all these endemic species like the fox. And you got photos of them, and I know you didn't get to see them. I mean, it's going to be hard. You have to be there at I think you have to camp probably to be able to get to see the fox.
Well, we
I
were
know.
just, we were just there for the day, and then what was
Yeah.
interesting, we didn't see any when we were hiking, but all of a sudden when we came back to the area where the historic ranch is, and we sat down, all of a sudden we saw them, and they started,
Yeah.
there a couple of them were there,
So
and then one came very close, and I got this great
Cool.
close up of this one, but and
wow.
they're so cute, and
They're
so
sweet.
small, and yeah, I mean, I love seeing the wildlife, especially wildlife that you don't get to see in other places.
Yeah.
I
That's
love this that
awesome.
you did that. I mean, because Nancy and I were looking at the photos, and I was going to
We're
say,
like,
"Hey, Debbie,
oh,
did you
cool.
take?" They were really good photos, and
Mhm.
to be able to see them, because normally it's like you have to be, the dawn and dusk
Right.
time, for wildlife, but it was protected, but at the same time, thank goodness it's protected because
Mhm.
this was also an area that was used during military bombings, and so
Right.
when you think that leg was there during was it there during the bombings? So I mean, you got to
Yeah.
think about this. California's history, especially on the coast,
Crazy.
is really interesting. There's nuclear history. I mean, so much happened. And these islands, I mean, you have to protect islands. Here we are. I know today we're recording this while we're still in the Pacific Northwest, but Nancy and I, would be Camino Islands,
Mhm.
all of those
Right.
areas. It's so important to protect these small places because they're so intensely connected. And I
Mhm.
think that's why, having the Park Service protect these islands. But when you think that these species came back because the fox,
Yeah.
I mean, I would think during, all the battles that happened that humans do, the fox would have bailed and people hunting them even.
But where are they going to
Right.
bail to?
The thing is that these islands are very isolated, and
Mhm.
if you're
Yeah.
if you're a mammal, I mean a creature that doesn't go in the water, you
Yeah.
really don't have any really recourse. And so what happens
Exactly.
is all of these things over the years, and the military activities, and then the fur traders and the ranchers, and
Mhm.
it took its toll on these islands and the ecology, with a lot of really devastating consequences. And so what has been done in the past years and what's being done is really working to, the National Park Service, and just really working to bring back the natural diversity. And it
Mhm.
is a success story on its way, and you can learn about that when you're at the park or in the visitor center too. They're talking about how fragile the ecosystem is, and
Yeah.
all this wonderful wildlife and aquatic creatures and everything. So things are starting, that they're really starting to come back, but it is something that has been, they've been really working on and will continue to work on for, many years, But each of the islands, there's 5 that are in the actual national park, and the 5 of them are each very, very different from each other. I only got to see the one, which was the Santa Cruz Island, which is actually the biggest of the islands, and is also one of the ones that's the most popular that the island packer boat goes to. It does go to a few others, but it is, the one that they go to the most, I believe, is the one that I went to. And, but some of the other ones are a little more wilder and probably, not as much established in terms of hiking and that. And this one also has this historic ranch on it, the Scorpion Ranch, and it has lots of old historic farming equipment, a historic blacksmith shop, a historic ranch. So there are some things that you can see that will tie into the history.
Did you see
I wanted-
scorpions?
Yeah, I know. First thing,
Because I mean, no, I just have a
13,000-year-old
relationship
leg
with
and
scorpions.
I did not see scorpions, but I'm assuming that there was a reason that ranch was named Scorpion Ranch.
Exactly.
I know. And then what about Potato Harbor? I got the giggles reading this, your story, because she went to Scorpion Ranch and then went on a hike to look at Potato Harbor.
Potato Harbor, yeah.
Yeah,
I know, and it's Potato Harbor. It's the name because it's descriptive as to the harbor, which does look like kind of a potato, or at least that's what they named it as years and years ago.
How funny.
So, but it is kind of funny. But the hikes there are really spectacular because you can be in the inland part of the island, but of course, if you want the incredible dramatic views, you're on the coastal side, and it just, every time you turn the corner, it was like, jaw dropping, because there's these incredible caves that are there, and just there's these algae, you just see all the algae from up above, and it's just, to me, it was, I kept saying, oh my gosh, every time I, turned, I was like, oh my gosh,
So you can see where pirates might want to land there and hide out.
There were rum runners out there back in the day. There were rum runners. No, it's
See,
true.
I know my rum history.
There were rum runners during Prohibition, especially. I think there were rum runners on the coast.
Yeah.
Back in that, I remember when we did the Ventura trip that we took. You could go on ghost walks and all kinds of stuff, but I remember this rum running history going, no way, this is so cool. But these islands, when you're going to, the names are I mean, and you were on a show talking about dry tortugas, and Jefferson, Fort Jefferson is known for scorpions. I'm just saying,
boy.
And they do have scorpions there, but I think it's all fascinating. But, here's this chain of islands and, all this human history, but then you're on a ranch, and that's got to make you think about setting up a ranch on an island and having a bakery. Like,
what?
Yeah.
A bakery.
Somebody's got to do it.
I know, and there, these buildings are over 100 years old.
Wow,
and
that's crazy.
You learn about kind of the stories of the island, the ranching, and just these families and these people live there, and you think to yourself, well, and it wasn't an easy living, because I mean, yes, there was stuff that of course they could eat and survive, but I mean, it was isolated. It's a very isolated, and you're kind of. I mean, you're out there and you're kind of a victim of the weather as well, So, I mean, there isn't much protection for you, So there, these people were, once again, as we talk about a lot of people in history, these people were, pretty strong people, and had strong will, and really, really, really knew how to, or learned how to, live in those types of circumstances.
I find that, just us doing we've done the Pacific coast pretty, the whole coast now, literally. And, the last few months being in the Pacific Northwest has been like, we were talking before we recorded, like this has been a little bit wild for Nancy and I, being the desert people, all the rain, but also the wind. My respect for, like, even when we were, in early February, we drove up through the redwoods and, did Highway 101, and you go and you stop at all these memorials, seafarers memorial sites and military sites where submarines during World War II. And you look at these, people that live there, and tsunamis, and when you stand out there, does any part of this remind you of South Africa? For us, it's very South African in certain areas. I don't know if you've done the garden route in South Africa. I know when you were in Cape Town and that area.
Yes.
But that really dramatic, rugged coast where it's not,
It's
typical,
crazy.
beach babe kind of thing. This is
Hooks Bay.
And when you're there, the drama is so intense, and you see where people homesteaded, and you just go like, we want our jackets and we'll put the heater on in the car or whatever. but you got to think about coming, to an island in the Channel Islands. Here you are, where things do change. You're at that epitome of change of biology and ecology and environment right there. And the wind is going to get you.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy. And you do have, I would have had to have a lot of wine.
That's why
maybe
it.
you could have had a vineyard,
Yeah,
I wonder how the wine. If you go on the mainland, they were starting that up with all the missionaries. But
definitely.
But I just look at this history of people like, okay, we're going to do this, and then they get there, and it's going to, like, the trek there was already hard. Now you're going to do this, and then here are the indigenous people who really got it because they really worked with nature so well. Was that something that you saw while you were there, with the Chumash, did you see, kind of get that feeling they understood nature a
Yes.
little bit better than the
Yes.
settlers?
Absolutely, without a doubt, and that's
Yeah.
typically the way it is with many places, most places.
Absolutely. That's so
Mhm.
sure because, I mean, they've been there for hundreds of years. And then
Yes.
here come these people on a boat and they,
Yep.
okay, they're a little more, let's just say they have an anxiety thing going on because you don't know truly
Mm.
where you're landing.
Right.
You don't. You just looked at a poster somewhere and paid your fee and thought it would be good. You really don't know. And you
Yeah.
just go. Okay. So, and it's not like a vacation where you get to come back.
No.
No. There's no
No.
return flight. So there you go. And then you like here you're on the beach and like, there you go. Have fun. Bye bye.
You
Can
start
you
a
imagine?
bakery. You start
Yeah.
a bakery.
Well, because if you know how to bake and people need bread,
That's
Hey.
right.
yeah, why
Well,
not?
I didn't realize that
Think about it.
how ingrained the Italians and French were in that region. And
They're
you think
older
about the
society
Basque
than
too, coming
Americans.
up into the mainland of Central California.
Yes.
So it's kind of interesting, this,
There's just
people history.
such a colorful and lengthy history, and
Mhm.
each group of people, brings something different
Yeah.
to the situation, good and bad.
Mhm.
So. To me, it's like, once again, we've talked about this, but when you visit places and you get to really see the history there in person,
Yeah.
instead of reading about it. I mean, it's wonderful to be able to read or see pictures, but it is,
Mhm.
really, put that to the nth degree, and when you actually see something and it really just, comes to life. So it was fascinating, to see, what was a ranch kitchen at that time, and all of that, or hearing about a landowner who was living there and herding sheep, and what were his thoughts about that, and how harsh it could be, or what challenges they had, and so it's really it really is such a colorful way to learn about the past.
I love it. And I also you're learning about the past of the plants and the
Yes.
animals too, not just the people. And we've obviously done different things to what happens, but I wanted to go, like, you were on our show, a little while ago, talking about being in Biscayne, you were in Key
Yep.
West, you were, in all these
Yep.
aquatic parks, and dry tortugas, and up in Congaree is different, right? And so now here you are on
Yeah.
the complete opposite end of the country. And Channel Islands, you can say, is one of those, marine, it's a marine life
Yep.
park. And
Yeah.
it's just something we forget about, and it doesn't have to be a national seashore to be one, but you can go kayaking, whale watching. And I know I have friends who go out there kayaking and see
Yeah.
whales and otters, and you saw starfish too. I'm jealous. I love starfish. But
Oh, yes.
it's like tide pool. There's all of this that goes on in these, amazing web of life that just even in a tide pool, but
And
you were talking about the kelp. So this is
yeah,
like night and day difference from Biscayne, but like you'll still get
right.
herons, right? And egrets.
And
And
I mean,
pelicans.
in Biscayne, it was all about, kind of the mangroves there, at least part of that. And, this, you're looking at, we're looking down from these cliffs and looking at the water, and they have these like kelp forests is what they call them. And, you can learn all about it. I found it to be fascinating because I really didn't know that much about kelp, and not that it was, it's known as one of the fastest growing plants on earth, and it, provides a whole lot of different things for a whole lot of different creatures. And, I didn't realize that we as humans also depend on it, and they said if you eat ice cream, if you eat salad dressing, if you use toothpaste, you are using a little bit of, part of the kelp's ingredients in there. But it was fascinating to me to learn that, because I would probably never have learned that bit of quote unquote trivia, never.
Yeah.
But having swum through like a kelp
Yeah.
forest, I wouldn't call it that big, but in Kenya,
Right.
I'm sorry, it's creepy because things touch you all over and you're like, what? And
Slimy.
it's only like the leaves of the kelp. No,
Right.
But people
Right.
eat it. People eat it. And health food
Yeah.
stores carry kelp. It's good for you.
Well, it's probably got a lot of salt in it, I would
Seaweed is good
imagine.
for you. I mean,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
seaweed's
But
different
it's,
than kelp, or it's the same, right? It is. Oh, now I have to go
well,
down a
one's
rabbit
kind of
hole.
a grass, one's kind of a grass and one's kind of leafy.
Well, one's algae. It's algae or
But
algae, however you want to say it.
it's still like when the water's really clear, like in Kenya, in certain places, water is so clear.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
Definitely. Well,
the beach sand is so white when you go in there, and then all of a sudden you swim through like a massive greenery
yes.
and
Yes.
it's touching you. I'm not
Yep.
talking about scuba diving because then you have a wetsuit on, you probably wouldn't feel it. But when you're just like snorkeling, it's like kind
Yeah.
of, it's creepy. And then
Well,
things
it's just,
come out at you, like if you put your
Oh,
face next to
big babies.
no, because I remember a moray eel coming out of this rock
yeah.
formation because I was like, "What's that?" And I go look at it. I'm like, "Oh!" And my little underwater camera, and you take a picture. I'm like, "I don't think so." Bye bye.
Yeah.
No, because it did. It just came right. Like, what are you doing in my home? I'm like, "Oh, sorry."
Yeah.
You know,
Well, but kelp, and I just looked
it's
at kelp,
good.
is a kind of seaweed.
I know.
Yeah.
I was looking at it too.
Yeah,
It is.
It's
It's the big
different.
one.
It's different from seaweed in some aspects, but it is
yeah,
they say it is a large seaweed and belongs to
yeah,
the actual algae family, so to speak.
yeah,
So,
Yeah.
and it talks about the fact that that you can have these kelp forests, which, I mean, when we
yeah,
look down, I mean, it just was all this dark, you know, plant growth.
yeah.
And I mean, I remember looking down, going, what is that? And
Hmm.
the rangers will tell you, and there's always a ranger that greets the island packer's boat on the island,
Cool.
and so that's really nice. And they give you kind of an introduction to the island, and tell you about kind of the do's and the don'ts, but also about what trails and where you could go, and they also lead a kind of a relatively shorter hike to some places so that people, if they are interested in having a guided hike, can go with the ranger.
Yeah, it's a
But
good idea.
but it's a great idea instead of just setting people loose and just letting them go, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can learn a lot from rangers. You can learn a lot from visitor centers.
Mhm.
And to me, yes, I love just walking and hiking and seeing the visual beauty, but there's something about when you know about something, it you tie it together and oh, that's what I'm looking at,
Mhm.
or that's what it means, or whatever it is, but there, kind of you put the two and two together, so to speak.
And you saw fox. You saw fox. I think that is
Yes.
the coolest thing ever that you saw.
Mhm.
And I wanted to touch on this too about the bakery, that it's an area you mentioned that it's for the endangered Townsend big-eared bat. And
Mm.
the bats are so
Yeah.
important
Bats are
in our
cool.
ecosystem. So I think you've got, I mean, this is just one of those epic trips. I mean, would you go back to this park?
I
would.
would, or maybe
Yeah.
what I would do is I'd go back to another island on the Channel
Mm.
Islands.
Would you kayak? Would you want to kayak out there?
You know what? We were planning to do a kayak trip when on the Santa Cruz Island, but the day that we were going to plan to do it, and this is an interesting thing. I mean, it was bad rain, bad winds.
Mm.
They canceled everything, all the boats,
Yeah.
everything.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we thought we weren't going to get to go, and then we just happened. I went into their office and I said, we have only tomorrow or something, and because I'd heard that it was all booked up, and she just looked at her thing and she said, "Oh my gosh," she said, two people just canceled. And she said, "We have 2 seats
Awesome.
left. Do you want them?" And I'm like, "Yes." And so we, obviously couldn't then do the kayak trip because that had already been full because that was set. But it was also kind of windy too, and it was probably okay that I didn't do it. But I would like to go back and do something like that because I really would love to kayak into those caves. I think that
Yeah.
would be so cool.
Now okay, so kayak, and you saw sea lions are out there and everything too.
Right.
But like, what would you do if you came upon a whale? Like seriously, kayaking.
It's
I'm
cool.
always curious about this because
Well,
it could happen.
They're cool.
Of
They're chill.
course we came on. I mean, when I was kayaking in the San Juans, we came across a whole orcas, all of them.
No
And
way.
Awesome.
yeah, and we were with a guide, and we were each in our kayaks, and he just said, "Okay, stop for a minute."
Yeah.
And he said, "I don't want you to move." And
Yeah.
he said, "Just watch." And it was like orcas on parade. They were just
Mm.
coming and coming and coming right in front of
Oh
us.
my God.
It's
And
so
so,
cool.
I think if you supposedly when we were talking to him, and this was a number of years ago, but he just said, if you happen to come, you just stop your boat.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you try not to get in their way, so to
Yep.
speak.
Mm.
They had a mission, they were moving, and it was like, don't get in their way, don't make them have to, like make choices here. It's like just stop and let them go on, kind of thing, so
That's so cool.
That is great
yeah.
advice. I mean, all of our experience in Africa and other places was when you are in, like we once were in the middle of the wildebeest migration.
Oh
Mm.
yes.
I was like,
Yep.
am I supposed to
Yep.
keep driving? I'm like, I really don't
Yeah.
want to. I just want to sit here and
Yeah.
enjoy it. And it was the coolest thing. I mean, they're
It is.
looking in the window and you're like, oh, hello. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it was the coolest thing. And they just cleared their own path. But if you keep driving, and I
Yeah.
remember once driving in a rhino charge, I'm like, just stop and wait
Yeah.
it out.
Mm.
Yeah.
Just stop
Yeah.
and let
I
the
mean,
wildlife do what the
yeah,
wildlife needs
Yeah,
to do.
exactly. They need to
Yeah,
just do that.
that's
I mean, of
great
course, there are
advice.
some situations where if you do happen to see a bear, the idea is to probably back away, looking at the bear, but don't get near and approach. Don't get
No.
any nearer than It's like that's something where you just don't want to get in their face. It's just,
Right.
why
Especially
would you want to create conflict when you don't need to?
Exactly. And if you have food in your backpack, leave your backpack.
Yeah,
Take it
put
off.
it down.
Put it down. It's only $20.
Well, I think
Or
this is
maybe more
always so
now, but-
important to talk about because there's fear that prevents people
Yeah,
from
Mhm.
going on adventures, but
Yeah.
knowledge helps you get through it. And we
Mhm.
talk about guides like going on with island packers and
Yeah.
Yeah.
and these outfitters.
That's so
I think
awesome.
and park rangers and
Mhm.
it's like we went the
Yep.
last time we went to the Sequoias. We were used to it. Our friend Dana was park ranger there, and she took us around. But the last time we went with the Sequoia Parks Conservancy, a naturalist who just
Mm.
they were like, you can customize your trip and do all this. And Nancy and I are
Right.
like, well, we want to do everything. Come on, you do. It's really hard, And but she took us. She just said, well, let's walk with the way you want to do. We'll just keep it easy and walk. We learned so much,
So
and your
much.
Yeah.
appreciation and
Yeah.
Mhm.
when you leave, when you have a guide that's telling you just the importance of this teeny beetle, when
Mhm.
you get
Oh.
home, you look at your pictures, you're posting on socials, whatever you're doing, when you reflect on it, you have your oh wow moments there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But the
Yep.
value of your memory and experience
Yep.
is massive.
Yes,
Because
it
you
is.
saw something you're not. I mean, when are you going to see that fox again? That is
Mm.
super
Yeah.
cool that you got to see
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
this one
Yeah,
species of
probably
fox you'll
not.
never see
Probably
ever.
not ever. Maybe never. Kind of thing. It's just, I always tell people, people who get nervous about being, quote unquote, in the wild or whatever it is. I'm always like, well, there are so many ways that you can travel to places that you might be a little bit nervous about, and that is to go with a guide service and go
Exactly.
with a tour, go with the ranger, go with somebody who knows the territory and is
Absolutely.
knowledgeable about everything, and then you'll feel much more comfortable. And along the way, you're going to learn a whole lot more than if you just kind of, wandered and roamed. Of course, you can learn stuff on your own, but it sure is nice to have that narration as you are, moving through the landscape,
Mhm.
It's especially if it's personal. Like you can
Yes.
like compared to a zoo, you can go to the zoo, read
Yeah.
the placards in front of all the animals,
Right.
and then
Right.
you'll learn something if you actually read. But it's not the same as in the wild. Absolutely,
right.
zoo animals are not like in the wild. But somebody who actually knows the plants, the animals, and how it's like
Yes.
it's
cool.
this is just an effort to learn about where we live on Earth,
Yeah.
learning our own planet.
Where are you
Absolutely.
going next this summer for regards to parks? Do you have any parks on your list? I know you're
Well, we're
going
going
all over and then
to
Europe.
Europe. Yeah, so
Oh,
Europe is we're
cool.
going to be doing hiking through the Dolomites in
Oh,
northern
Oh,
Italy.
nice.
no
We're going to be
way.
doing a hike hike in the Lake District of England to do part
Oh,
of the
Cool.
Hadrian's Wall,
Cool.
and we're going to
Yeah.
go do Greenland. Um,
oh
so
my
that'll be
gosh.
very
That's
interesting.
epic.
And yeah, and then we're doing a kayaking in the Lake District of Italy and the Italian part of Switzerland. So,
Oh, wow.
quite a few things
Huh.
that we will be doing. A lot of, and then we'll be in Switzerland and doing a lot of kind of natural, going to
Cool.
Zermatt, doing some hiking. But yeah, we'll be seeing what the whole natural landscape is there, which is incredible and equally
Mm,
as dramatic and amazing. But yeah, so
cool.
we are, we hope to cover a lot of ground, and then when we get back to hopefully finish off in the next year or so the national parks that we need to get to, because I think there's 63 of them, and we probably have we might have about 8 left or something.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah, because some of
Mm,
them like Isle Royale or some interesting one,
those are
Voyagers or some
hard. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
Alaska gets difficult too,
Yeah,
you
it
yep,
know.
does.
yep. I've done a couple in Alaska, and those the types of parks that you're talking about are ones that you probably need to go see in the summer, because a lot of them are
Mm,
regarding weather, or else for example, you need to get a boat to take over there to the Isle
yeah.
Royale or whatever. So there are some that are a little bit less accessible, like the ones even like the Channel Islands, but even more so in some
Mm,
Yeah,
respects.
I think though your story with the Channel Islands, number one, it reminds us about the importance of biodiversity
hmm
in plants and animals
Yeah.
and humans, and cultural diversity. And then it also really tells the story of you know these places are accessible. You just have to plan and also understand weather can change your plans.
Oh,
So
yes.
plan to spend
Yeah,
a couple other
that's true.
days. Like I was saying,
Yep.
that area
Mhm.
is on the Wambatista de Anza National Historic Trail. There are there's the missions, there's the museums, there's art, there's amazing restaurants, there's the harbor. There's
Yep.
a lot you can do if the weather gets weird and
Yeah.
still be able to explore it. So
Right.
Nancy and I have this rule of thumb is park first, everything else
Mm,
second. So
yeah.
that if the weather sucks the day you get there for the park, you can twirl your plans around immediately and
hmm
go
Yes.
to the museums during the rainy time and
Yep.
things
Absolutely.
like that. So I know people with time short if are short on time and things like that, and maybe this is your trip, your big trip, something you've always
Yes.
wanted. Always have that extra day for weather, and try to do the outdoors first because,
Yeah. Make them a
and besides,
Make
if
them a
you,
priority. Yeah.
yeah, because if you flew there or drove there, you probably need to shake that off anyway. So,
Yeah.
get
Good.
outside
Good.
first. And
Yep.
yeah, 'cause it can change on you. So, people do that last minute. I'm like, yeah, go for it. But doesn't mean even in the rain you can't have a good time,
No, of course
so
not. No, you just have
yeah.
to dress appropriately.
Yeah.
Yes, we're learning that.
True.
We're learning that. We're getting there. We're getting there. So everyone, the website for the national park, for Channel Islands National Park is nps.gov/CHIS. And for Island Packers, who are your outfitters for this, go to islandpackers.com. You can read Debbie's article up on nationalparktraveling.com. And also, of course, keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. Debbie is on our show every fourth Tuesday for Travel Tuesday. So stay tuned for her adventures. Oh, we're going to be following her when she gets to Europe.
hmm
Wow, that's going to be
That's gonna be fun.
epic. That is epic. So very cool. I'm very excited. Thank you so much, Fire Monkey.
Thank you so much, ladies, and talk to you soon.
All right,
Take
you take
care.
care. Thanks,
Okay,
everybody.
you
Thanks for
too.
joining us. Bye bye.